Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth. We talk about the latest home video releases, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then beyond that, I think is Candyman 3. So like that's kind of our metric for like the worst. But with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to you to start us off.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am starting off with a title I was anxious to revisit, and I'm excited because we have another boutique label jumping into the 4K game. This is the first 4K Ultra HD release from NBD Entertainment, and it is the new release of Rain Man, which I have actually never owned on Blu-ray or DVD or anything. This is my first time owning this, but I have seen it before. I think maybe at least twice before, I believe. So this was my first viewing in a few years, like 3 or 4 years. And so this comes with a Blu-ray and a 4K disc. Both of these are newly remastered, and I'll get into the those elements here in a little bit. But so yes, this is a Best Picture winner. You can see 4 Academy Awards, including Dustin Hoffman in the supporting actor role. So I really like this movie. I think it's very good. There are elements of it that can be kind of a little uncomfortable just on the portrayal, just like with Dustin Hoffman playing a character with autism, and of course like the understanding of autism has kind of evolved over the like past couple decades. And like I know like I have people with autism like in my extended family and like my wife's family, so I know every like it's a spectrum, and this particular portrayal, it just kind of seems very right, like movie-esque. Like it's just very written to be like kind of heightened to a specific point where it suits the narrative, like kind of how the character of Raymond interacts with the world around him. But the movie itself, the narrative itself, I think is so like kind of heartwarming, and it's like genuine that I think it kind of like overcomes some of like the more dated elements of like understanding of autism. It's just because it's a journey of like the Tom Cruise character who doesn't know that he has a brother. He's like a self-centered kind of jerk who's trying to like maintain his business. He's starting to go underwater, and then his dad dies, and it leads him to learn that he does have a brother he never knew about who is autistic. And he ends up kidnapping him from his care facility because he pretty much thinks that he can like hold him for ransom basically until he can get like the share of his father's fortune that he thinks he deserves. But along this journey, he begins to like actually care about Raymond and like become a better person. It's not like a terribly complex movie, but the actual journey, it is worthwhile. But just because, like I said, it does have its heart in the right place. It does have like a good narrative through line. I do love Tom Cruise despite his Scientology stuff. Like setting that aside, I think he's a really good actor, and he does a really good job in this. And just like he can play like a jerk really well, but then like once he does start to like actually like grow a heart, basically he's believable in that role too. And but in Dustin Hoffman, for what he is asked to do, he's really great. He's just like, yes, it is kind of more of like a caricature, but he's funny. He makes you care about him. I don't know, these characters, like it's just a movie is full of heart. It's a little long, at like 2 hours and 10 minutes long, I believe. But it actually like goes like it's paced very well, and it doesn't really feel overly like extended. It has like a nice pace and a nice emotional payoff. So yes, the movie, like there are problems with it, but I think it's really great despite some of its issues. And like the Barry Levinson direction is really nice. It's just a really great movie. And this particular presentation, like I said, I've never owned this before, but from what I've seen from like people talking and like screen caps of older Blu-rays, the older presentation was kind of a mess, had a lot of digital sharpening, and like it's just like kind of looked old and dated. So this comes from a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative. It's a 16-bit scan, and it's in Dolby Vision, which originally, whenever this title was announced, there was not going to be any HDR applied to this. And then fans were like, what are you doing, MBD? And they delayed this release. They put a Dolby Vision application on this, and it looks really nice. It's a really good 4K base restoration, which you can also see on the Blu-ray. It looks really nice, but the 4K itself with the Dolby Vision looks even better. It's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit deeper colors, has really like firm control of the highlights. Not There's maybe like a slight amount of crushing and a few shadowy scenes, but not too much. And there's like, you have a rich sheen of natural film grain, which the older scan apparently did not have. This has a really nice film grain that's really well resolved. So it's a really, really nice looking picture. So MBD for their first 4K release has done a really nice job. In terms of special features, there are 3 archival audio commentary tracks. There's one with the director Barry Levinson, and then 2 with different writers. One is kind of like had like the story inspiration, and then the other he kind of like came in for rewrites because this was going to be a much different movie than what it started out as in the first script, and you kind of learn about that through their commentary tracks. There's also 2 additional featurettes that run about 20 minutes long, one about the movie itself and another about like autism and like kind of goes into the history and everything. So they do kind of try to address it in a medical way within the featurettes, within the time it was made. So that's pretty cool that they do try to like dispel some of the myths and like about autism and everything. So that's cool. And then there's like a theatrical trailer and like one deleted scene that they didn't use, which is pretty good. So if you're a fan of Rain Man, this is a really great release. I'm glad that it got a 4K release. I figured it would since it's MGM and they're very eager to license out their stuff for boutique labels, but it finally came around and they did a really good job with it. So kudos to MBD, and I hope that their release of Swamp Thing is as good as this because we'll be in for a treat.
I mean, maybe we'll get a Rain Man Swamp Thing crossover event.
Oh, that would be something.
Yes, that would be a thing. Just yeah, putting it out there in the universe though. So I'm wearing my Countess Dracula shirt here because I'm really excited. I was so happy that I got this. It is Renfield from Universal. This was a lot of fun. So before so slipcover, really cool. I like the raised lettering. I really love the overall design. Really nice array of features. What they don't mention is they have a commentary track, and you know I am a slut for commentary tracks, so very excited. And this is a Dracula Sucks edition. I think that's so cute. And okay, so here's the inside. So if you order this, it will have a digital code. Mine isn't in there right now. But one cool thing was at the beginning, there's like a group of vampire hunters. I got to talk to one of them. We've actually kind of been talking for a while, even before this. So it was really fun to get to talk to him about what it was like making that. I mean, he's only in it for one scene, but it was really a pretty pivotal one, and he had a blast. But I'll link that interview in the description because we love synergy here. So, as for the movie itself, critics didn't really seem to connect with this, but I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge fan of the old school Universal monsters. I actually thought it was kind of clever the way they used Todd Browning's footage, but inserted the Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoyt into their respective roles, Renfield and Dracula. I know some purists may find that like heresy or whatever, but I thought it was really fun. And again, if you're not really familiar with those movies, I think it's kind of a nice maybe jumping off point. You know, even though we're going to get into Nicolas Cage, this is really the other Nicholas's movie. I mean, he's the centerpiece of this. Um, I like how the director um, really did like make him sort of the focus, which obviously it's called Renfield. But yeah, I think that when you have like someone like Cage, I think it's easy to maybe like kind of sideline maybe your main character. But they don't do that here, and I think that's like really the way to go. So yeah, I think the plot does have some wonky moments, but again, it's overall fun. The makeup effects are like phenomenal. Same with the production design. I haven't seen this gorgeous of a movie in a while. And of course, Nicolas Cage is holy crap at his best. He's just having a blast. I love it. He's really, I know some people say like he's the only reason to watch it. I would disagree, but I think that he's kind of a huge selling point, of course. And yeah, I mean, I can tell that everybody kind of loves the source material. But I think what's really cool is this is one of those rare movies that really talks about toxic and codependent relationships in a way that feels authentic, feels nuanced, but it's a goofy, vampire John Wick kind of style of romp. So I like that there's sort of that more serious layer, but then it never really derails the tone. And I think that it's easy to take that for granted, but like it really is a balancing act. So I think this handles that really well. Um, it being a newer release, it looks really great, sounds great. We of course would probably love a 4K, but I'm happy with a Blu-ray. Again, really awesome. And if you haven't watched it, it's well worth checking out because it's just a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though it was released earlier this year and just came out, I'm excited for whenever Halloween rolls around. I feel like it'll be a great Halloween watch. So go ahead and add it to your collection so you'll be ready come Halloween season. You'll be good to go. And you can enjoy it until then also. So my next title, it is from Unearthed Films. It is a 2022 release of The Sound of Summer, which is a horrific body horror film. So this is a Japanese film. It kind of concerns. It's set in the summertime whenever the like oppressive heat is bearing down, and kind of how it impacts different people and just kind of makes them start to like lose their mind a little bit. And there's also within this kind of town that they're featuring a man known as the Cicada Man, who just kind of like goes around. He's kind of like the creepy town like legend basically, and he just like collects cicadas and just is just generally creepy, and people just kind of are wary of him. But this is really just how more of a story, just like how like kind of one's mind can kind of deteriorate under like extreme circumstances and start to hallucinate, and like how paranoia manifests, and like there's like depictions of like self-harm, and like how one's mental state can kind of cause you to do like crazy things. But so there's like a lot of depictions of like people like clawing at their skin and like kind of peeling, like making gashes inside themselves and like pulling out stuff from the like it's a really gnarly movie. So this is not for like the faint of heart. And then there's like some really weird like makeup effects and kind of like Cronenberg-esque elements near the end with the Cicada Man. But I do want to stress this is a really low budget movie. It kind of almost looks almost kind of like handheld camera, like a consumer grade camera, but it's a little bit better quality. But it is just a really, like, you can tell it is just a low budget like body horror movie that they're just kind of like running and gunning it. So it's not like the most finessed movie and like not the most like crisp cinematography all the time, but overall it's a pretty well constructed movie. And it doesn't run terribly long. It's only an hour and 15 minutes. but even at that length, I think there's still some stretches that kind of start to spin their wheels a little bit. I think there's like a good idea here, and but there's just some moments that just kind of left me a little bored. But it's still a decent movie. It's just like it couldn't sustain itself throughout the whole running time for me, which is weird since it's such like a shorter running time. But if you're a body horror fan, check it out. It is kind of gnarly just for the special effects, but this release, it looks nice. Like I said, it's kind of the source is not like the most high quality, but it looks nice for high definition. It sounds good, like the original Japanese, optional English subtitles, LPCM 2.0 audio. There's a pretty good selection of special features. There's a 45-minute behind the scenes featurette, which is basically just kind of you're like a fly on the wall of just them shooting different scenes and putting like makeup tests and all that kind of stuff during the production. There's another featurette that's like a talk show-ish, like Q&A screening that's 34 minutes. And then there's another actual premiere video that lasts about 43 minutes. So there's some substantial featurettes that run almost 2 hours. So and then there's like a trailer, but otherwise this is a pretty solid release. If you're into the genre, check it out. If you're not, if you're squeamish, don't check it out. It's pretty gross. But Unearthed Films did a good job with this, and I think it'll be a fun discovery for some of our audience.
Nice. When you said like Cicada Man, I thought he was just maybe taping or gluing cicadas on his body. Like, see, if you're gonna go weird with it, I say just go really weird. Like, just commit. But no, that does sound interesting. So I have a pair of Mondo Macabro titles. My first one is it's one of those, I think the cover looks great and the movie's maybe not so great. But I don't feel bad because the next Mondo title is I'm going to be talking about in a little while is much better. So I feel like it's balanced. We got some balance here. So this is the Witch's Mountain, and like I said, very cool cover. And we do have some really nice features, which I'll get into in a little bit. Yeah, this was less than 90 minutes, and I would say so. I'm struggling to say some really nice things about this, but I will say it does have this really nice, creepy atmosphere, and it does really like fit. It kind of fits this really nice, like eerie sort of folk horror tone. The movie starts off really cool. This woman like just she has this daughter, and the daughter's like a bitch, and she kills the mom's cat or something, and she retaliates by lighting the child on fire. And
Wow.
that's like the first 5 minutes of the movie. So I was like, all right, I am ready for this madness. Like, let's go. And then kind of nothing happens for the next hour ish. Yeah, like even the back says it was like banned and stuff. I don't understand why it's not particularly gruesome. There's not a lot of like it's not very graphic at all. I mean, I'm super jaded, but you could put this on TV probably and it would be fine. Again, it kind of builds to a really cool, creepy ending. I just think getting there is kind of tedious. There are two interviews featured on here. There is a commentary track. All of that's some really cool stuff because I will say going back, it kind of made me appreciate certain elements of this film, but it didn't really just overall, it didn't kind of connect with me. But I mean, that the beginning was cool, so I guess it's a good thing to say about it. The transfer looks nice. So Mono does a really good job of like sourcing the best possible like transfer that they can. This one's not pristine, but I think it overall looks really nice, especially when you're talking about like an obscure Spanish film that maybe like wasn't, the elements maybe weren't, particularly taken care of. But it's still overall looks nice. And yeah, it's as always, I love how Mondo not only kind of rescues these obscure films, but they also like give you a documentary and a commentary track and some interviews and stuff. So they don't just, slap a movie down there. They really put a lot of love into it. So, I love the label. I love the presentation. I really didn't connect with the movie, but your mileage may vary. So if you're, I mean, like I'm a completist, so I kind of have to have everything, the good and the bad. So
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is watch the first 5 minutes, just turn it off after.
and the last maybe 15 minutes are pretty cool too, but everything else is just such a slog. But this guy's mustache is really, really something.
Mm.
Like that mustache could like win a bar fight.
Awesome. Are we getting your second Mondo title now or after my next one?
After yours, sorry.
All right, I'll jump into it then. My next title is from Paramount, and it is the action thriller Assassin Club. Yes, the generically titled mishmash of words, just people going into a writer's room and like, all right, what can we kind of like throw together that sounds actiony? Like Assassin Club, sure, print it, go. And that's kind of how this movie feels. It's not bad, but it's just kind of forgettable. I got it because I really like the cast. I think Henry Golding, ever since he came onto the scene in a bigger way with Crazy Rich Asians, he's never really seemed to really hit those heights. Like whenever he tried to do like Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe movie, didn't really work out for him. And now he's to this, which is like not quite direct to video, but kind of on that line. I think he's an actor that deserves better. But he does a good job in this. This is basically a tale of like he's an assassin who kind of works for like a organization and led by Sam Neill. And he kind of he gets himself into a situation where like all these assassins get like hits to take one another out, which is kind of like orchestrated by this outside party. So he's trying to get out of the business, but he's like pulled in for like one more job, and then he has to like trying to protect himself from other assassins, and it's just like a whole mishmash of assassination stuff. And then there's like some bad people. Daniela Melcher from the new Suicide Squad, the James Gunn Suicide Squad. She's in this, and Numi Rapace from the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movies. She plays one of the assassins. As far as like action movie goodness, there's like some pretty decent shootouts. The acting's not bad. They did get good actors, like I said, so they elevate the material. The plotting is like not unexpected. It's just kind of delivers what you expect. I've seen worse action movies, definitely, but I've seen way better as well. So this is just kind of more so if you're wanting a newer action movie where you kind of like know what to expect. You kind of get some good shootouts, some good kills, decent performances, some like double crosses and spy intrigue. You'll get that, but then once you're done with it, like a few days later, you'll probably be like, what happened in that movie? And probably not care to revisit it like over and over again. It's a decent time waster if you have time to waste. But I wouldn't say like go out of your way to see it. If you see it streaming for free and you're in that mood, check it out. Just like don't go out of your way. But yeah, and this Blu-ray, it is nice. It's a new movie, just came out this year. Looks good, sounds good. DTS 5.1 sound, crisp and clear picture. No special features, so if you're hoping for that, it's not happening. But yeah, so very run-of-the-mill action movie that does its job, but not much else.
It sounds like that could have used a guy with cicadas all over it.
I think most movies could, but
right?
just America hasn't caught on. We need more cicada men.
Like, get on it, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do something that I hope is super not cringy, but this next movie I did cover in my film guide, and I thought my intro was kind of sums it up really well. So I'm gonna like read my intro to my next title. Because again, I not to boohoo complain or anything, but like a lot of these movies in my film guide were so hard to find, and now I guess it's nice for people wanting to find the movies in the film guide. They're coming out in these beautiful 2K and 4K scans. Yeah, so my next title is Dr. Caligari. I keep wanting to call it Caligula because I'm still thinking about Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
So um, yeah, so I have a bookmarked. So a little book reading, which I'm like weirdly nervous because I've never like done this before, but I don't know. Andre can cut out all this blabber. So I say in my intro, take Cronenberg style body horror, add the hypersexuality of John Waters, mix a good helping of horror fanzine like energy and a generous amount of LSD, blend on high. Once done, garnish with an eyeball. Then take a sip and kiss your sanity goodbye. And I feel like that kind of sums up this movie. It is just really bizarre, but it has such a beautiful, almost like pure expressionistic kind of uh, just essence to it. And yeah, it has no relation to the silent film other than like stylistically, they do kind of use that German expressionism. Like a lot of the sets are like handmade. Which is like harkens back to that. But it also kind of dawned on me rewatching this. It kind of reminded me of Dementia, which was a film that Kino put out that I talked about a while back, because it kind of taps into that weird psychosexual nightmare. And yeah, I talk about the plot, but the plot is really not relevant. Which sounds like not like that sounds bad, but I think that this is more of a vibe movie than an actual sort of narrative, or at least traditional narrative. Yeah, if I were to sum it up, it's just about sexual repression and how that sort of manifests in sort of like a psychological surrealist kind of way. Now, if you're a fan of this movie and you have 4K capability, Mondo does have a 4K option as well. If you can see this in 4K, I highly recommend it. I will link where y'all can pick that up as well. If you're just fine with a Blu-ray, I mean, again, I feel like this is a must own. Um, like I said, I feel slightly better kind of knocking on this movie. So we're having some Mondo vindication here. This is an amazing title. Um, Again, some really nice features. So this is a new 4K transfer. Again, they do have a true 4K version as well. Um, and yeah, tons of features. Again, this is a title that clearly was really important to Mondo. So that's why it's maybe one of Mondo's first actual like true 4K um, alongside a Blu-ray release. So that's really exciting. So that kind of tells you how important this title is. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a good release for fans. And I guess now people have gotten a excerpt from your guide. So I guess if they like what they heard, go check it out. The descriptions or the link is in the description every week. So go for it. My next title is another 2023 release. It is from Universal, and I was pretty excited about because I love the star. This is Inside with Willem Dafoe, which I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I liked it. I didn't love it. The basic plot of this one is Willem Dafoe plays an art thief who he's like a high-end art thief who breaks in with the help of a team at the beginning of the movie into this kind of loft that has like this priceless artwork that while this person is out of town. And in the course of trying to steal this artwork, he sets off an alarm and he gets trapped within this loft. And um, when he's in the course of trying to turn off this alarm, it kind of like malfunctions the system, and he like he's trapped in this loft under extreme conditions. Like it keeps alternating between like extreme heat and like really cold air, and then like some of like the TVs on the blink. So it's like kind of like almost like a audio visual, like almost like torture sometimes with how things are like hitting him. And it's a very huge loft, I will say that. And like the production design is some of like the most amazing that I've seen in quite some time. But this is just basically an hour and 40 minutes of Willem Dafoe alone for the most part. I won't spoil anything, but trying to figure out how to survive in this loft, how to get out of this loft, and just like not lose his sanity. But it is just basically like an hour and 40 minutes of him starting to slowly lose his shit. So if that sounds good to you, check it out. It is very kind of artsy and like singular, like just like a person just on screen, just like acting, like but like it's Willem Dafoe, so it's just he does it well. It's not something that he hasn't done before. The movie I kind of compare this most to, but I like this a lot better than this, is Siberia, which was the what's the director? I know he's great. Driller Killer.
Abel Ferrara.
Abel Ferrara, yeah. Siberia, it kind of drove me nuts because it was very abstract, and I was just like, I do not know what the hell is going on in this movie, even though I reviewed it, so I'll link that review in the description. But I'm just like, I don't know. This was a more accessible Siberia for me, except just completely in a loft. But it is very kind of like the nature of art and humanity, and like the fine line between insanity and reality, and it's just kind of like all these heady ideas, which I think is cool. And I think it would have been better if it was not an hour and 40 minutes. I think this is like an hour and 20-minute movie through and through that's been extended a little bit too long, maybe even a little bit shorter, maybe like an hour 15. It could shave quite a bit off. But if the idea of just seeing Willem Dafoe just act for an hour and 40 minutes just by himself appeals to you, check it out. It's still a pretty good movie. I think there's just some really specific things that they could have like fine-tuned to make this a really exciting movie. But oh well. This Blu-ray, it looks nice. Sounds good. It's DTS 5.1. That's the crisp new movie. This is stylistically supposed to be kind of hazy at points because he is kind of losing his mind. So you kind of see some like out of focus shots in time, but it's like true to the source. The interesting thing about this doesn't seem to be like a kind of like mainline universal release. It seems to kind of be like more of it's not a manufacturer on demand disc, but it kind of seems to be a disc that they put out because that they didn't put like a lot of care into it because there's no menu screen. It just kind of like goes directly into the movie, but there are special features, so you have to use like the pop-up menu to get to deleted scenes. But then once it's done, there's just no menu screen, and it's just like the weirdest thing. There's like 5 minutes of deleted scenes that are pretty decent. But I didn't need this movie to be longer, so I'm glad they were cut for what they. So I'm glad we can see. But it's a good release. It's just weird that there's no menu screen, but it is what it is. But if you want to check it out, Inside, solid enough movie. Just go in knowing like it's very heady and just like insular and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird movie, so it kind of tracks that the disc would be slightly kind of weird and off.
Yeah.
Also, I did look it up, and if y'all want to try before you buy, it's on Peacock. If you have that, I might give it a try this weekend.
Yeah.
But I'm getting into some Kino because we love that here. And I was really, really excited about this set. And it didn't disappoint. So this is the anime Wong collection, and they usually do like more of these. So I'm hoping that we get some more volumes of this. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. They're good, but like there's not a lot of substance. Um, these are just kind of B programmers, but I think they're really entertaining, and especially if you're a fan of this actress, and y'all should be because she's awesome. King of Chinatown is the first one, and I think overall this showcases her range the best. So here's the back. So we do have a commentary by David Del Val. He's a friend of the channel. Awesome, really fun commentary track. Yeah, this movie is kind of a weird hybrid of it's a gangster film, but it's a drama, kind of a little bit of a romance. There is a gangster who is recovering from a failed assassination attempt. His nurse, who's played by Wong, kind of nurses him back to health. They have this sort of unlikely friendship that develops. And yeah, it's a little bit predictable, but I will say it's really engaging, and I like that the relationship in the film. It felt really interesting, and that's kind of what kept me engaged throughout. This features a very young Anthony Quinn, which I think is really cool. He's one of those actors I think is so underrated. This comes from a new 4K scan of the 35 millimeter original camera negative. So it looks great, sounds really great. This is just under an hour, so it's a breezy watch. Dangerous to Know is the next title, and this comes from a brand new 2K scan. This also has a commentary track. Actually, all of these does, which I love because that's like, again, that's my favorite feature. So, Dangerous to Know. Also, this guy's name is Akam Charof. I'm probably butchering that, and I apologize. But he was in the previous film, and he again plays this gangster, but he's a little bit more sinister in this one. He is basically trying to climb his way up to high society. He's doing this through blackmail. He's trying to marry this high society woman. And I think that this kind of sidelines Anime Wong a little bit. Like you can see she's not top billed. Like the previous film, but she's great. She's great in all these because she's awesome. But yeah, it's interesting because it kind of talks about class struggle, and there's sort of this like talking about the haves and have-nots, which I always think is really interesting, especially movies from the 30s. But it's kind of predictable. It is interesting in parts. I will say like the endings kind of wild. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, not bad. The next one is a remake of a movie you covered not too long ago, White Woman, which I think was the Charles Laughton film.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, here's the thing. And again, commentary track. So yeah, this is another one where Anime Wong is like front and center. I think this and King of Chinatown are like the best movies in this set, and they're of course the ones that feature her more prominently. This is a B programmer from Kirk Newman. If you don't know that name, you know his movies. He did the original Fly. He did an excellent B movie called She Devil, Rocket Ship XM. All of those are cult classics, and it's great. So going into this set, I know I was kind of bracing myself because there's a lot of cultural insensitivity at times, and when you're talking about films from the 30s and the 40s, that's just kind of something that unfortunately is a thing. So you get like people doing like white people doing Asian makeup, and yeah, it's really cringy. But again, I think this is a compelling movie because it does sort of talk about like class struggles, but it has this really interesting kind of gangster element to it. And the ending, I feel like, is pretty devastating. I feel like it's pretty much on course with the 30s Charles Lawton film. But I don't want to spoil that if you haven't seen either one of those. But it's a really interesting remake, and the commentary track really goes into a lot more detail about that, about the original, and of course this one. So yeah, it's fun if you like. This director also did The Secret of the Blue Room, which I think you also covered. So that's really cool if you're a fan of that director. This is a really nice set. Again, I love how these all have new 2 or 4K scans. They all have commentary tracks. Yeah, I mean, you really can't go wrong with this. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of hers. I'm just now starting to kind of check out more of her films. So was a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome because we so rarely get to see like old school Hollywood films that have any people of color in them, unless they're like in a servant role or something like that. But even like, especially like Asian Americans are just very underrepresented. So it's just cool that we have a whole box set that can like put a spotlight on this woman who obviously had a pretty solid career in Hollywood for a time. So that's really awesome. And I'm anxious to look through that set. So I'll check that out. My next title is distributed through Kino, but is from Milestone Films, and it is the epic documentary, The Sorrow and the Pity. And this is one many people call it like one of the best documentaries of all time, and I can understand why. It's quite impactful. It is also super long. It is. I had to carve out some time. This is 4.5 hours long, and what this is a fascinating exploration of a French village about 30 years after the end of World War II. This filmmaker is asking these people to kind of finally confront the French presence in World War II and how it's kind of been mythologized to be completely heroic and all kinds of like all in a positive light. Whereas the actual truth of the matter is a little bit more complex. There were resistance fighters, but then there were people who sided with the Nazis and like kind of like, oh, this is what we're doing. Sure, I'll help them. And then there were people who just kind of they didn't side with either side, but they just kind of let things happen. And it's just kind of allowing all these people to tell their truths who did like live through it. And it's very impactful. And like I said, it's 4.5 hours. So like you may think that's kind of a slog, but it is pretty captivating throughout because these are such like intensely personal stories, and some of the like information they are relaying, you just some of these people don't probably understand how they are coming off, or they just don't care. Just because it's interesting to draw the parallels to today, which I hate to kind of like just bring everything back to like the current political climate, but just to see how people can so easily find themselves just like slowly boiling to death, like just allowing like, oh, this bad thing happens, but that's not my problem. This bad thing happens. And then just kind of like it all rolls together until suddenly you're occupied by Nazis and you're like, oh, but I don't know, just like to see some of these people, like some of the people who are victimized. Like there's one person who's being interviewed who he's living like kind of like a quiet life with his family now, but he knows specifically one of his neighbors sold his location out to the Nazis that got him imprisoned, and he knows this, but he's just like, what are you going to do? Like he's living with this information that just a neighbor right down the road sold him out, and he's just living with that information. He's just like going on with his life, but that's just kind of like a heavy thing to kind of realize, like you're still living, like it's been 30 years, but you're living so close to someone who like could have potentially killed you or gotten you killed. And there's just so many of those stories that are just really it's just so impactful, and it's just such a wonderful documentary. If you have the time and the patience to go through it, I think it's really rewarding. And I think this is a really good one for Milestone to have restored. This is a new 2K restoration, spread over the two discs. So like the first part is just a little over 2 hours, and the rest is on the second disc. Um, it's a really nice looking transfer. Some of this material is not like in the best shape, so it's not like crisp and like clear, but this is made in the 70s, I believe, or 69, so even later or earlier. So this is a pretty old documentary, but it's like been like preserved pretty well with this 2K restoration. It looks nice. There is one really cool special feature on this, which is a 40-minute interview conducted by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences with the director from 2017, in which he kind of like, he's like an old man now, and he's just kind of telling his experiences shooting this movie, and like he's just like a real character, just kind of sharing his stories and talking about like the reactions he got from people in France who had just kind of like, they didn't want to be portrayed, like they didn't want to confront their own realities. And he kind of drew parallels to how like in Germany, once like the Nazis left, they kind of wanted to pretend like that hadn't just happened, but you have to like confront stuff and heal before you can move on, that type of thing. So it's just a really interesting special feature that I'm glad was put on here, and I'm glad it was captured. But other than that, there's just a trailer, so that's the only special feature, but it's very worthwhile. But if this sounds interesting to you, it's a really great release from Milestone. It seems like a really great piece of cinema history, and yeah, just fantastic release.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds really interesting. Again, especially when you're like, okay, it's considered like one of the best documentaries. It's like that's saying a lot. So that sounds like something I'll definitely need to check out. And I'm sticking with Kino here, and this was a really fun set. And I'm not going to get too crazy into detail because I don't kind of want to spoil a lot of this, but this is Arsène Lupin. Andre can tell me if I'm butchering that or not.
How do you go about pronouncing this in French? In France, we say it as Arsène Lupin. Arsène Lupin. But it'd be fine in English to say it as Arsène Lupin.
This contains three films, and unfortunately, we don't really get any features, which is kind of a shame because I think there. I did my own kind of homework with like the source material. This was based on a hugely popular series about a gentleman thief. The writer was LeBlanc, I think, and that's where they kind of maybe take inspiration for the gentleman detective in Knives Out. And I'm going to mention Knives Out because I feel like I could definitely see maybe some parallels. Not so much these movies, but just sort of that archetype that they really kind of nail home. Especially what I think they're maybe setting up for in some of the other Knives Out. But yeah, these were really interesting films. It's kind of wild because the first film is in beautiful like color. I even like made sure to note that like the locales and just like the way they like film like streets and like everything just pops, and this restoration's really nice. And then when I got in the second film, it's black and white, and it was kind of jarring. And the third film is also in black and white. And I think it's a really fun series overall. I feel like each of these movies could have been paced a little bit better. There definitely is some like hijinks that didn't really fit in with this, and that's another thing that's interesting about this series is it's not slapstick comedy, but it has that vibe, if that makes sense. Like there's no Three Stooges like bonks and stuff, but the hijinks, the music, the first film has this kind of ridiculous scene when he's at a barber shop. Um, but I will say these are like very detailed films. They're very well shot. Again, I was a little bit disappointed the other two films are in black and white, and I mean they're still really nice. These restorations are really fantastic. None of these are dubbed. They're all the original French with subtitles. You know, our motto is subs before dubs here. So yeah, really fun. They're definitely like cool little adventure films, and like he's a classy thief, and it's kind of fun to see that sort of these adventures. It almost feels like the Knives Out because he is a partner in this, and I'm blanking on her name, but she plays the head of the school in Suspiria in the original. And I kind of feel like that's what they're doing. They're setting a sort of a similar dynamic up in maybe future Knives Out. I don't want to spoil the last one if y'all haven't seen it, but you know, if you've seen it, you know what I mean. There's sort of like a team up situation that feels very much like these movies. So it's a really nice set. I'm kind of like new to this series as like in like as far as like literature goes, but I'm actually starting to maybe like in getting into like reading the original source material. There's a new Netflix series that's supposed to be pretty good. Just called Lupin. So this is a really cool time to check the set out. And again, they all look really nice. They're all pretty enjoyable, if not a little bit too long. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love an old school heist movie, so I'm excited to check more of those out. My next title is another new one, and while I said that Inside was more of like kind of an experimental artsy film, this film is pure experimental. So hold on to your butts. This is from Kino Lorber, and it is The Severing. So this is an experimental dance film. There is very little dialogue. There's probably like 3 or 4 lines of kind of narration throughout. There are intermittent kind of like title cards or like text on screen that kind of helps guide you a little bit, but it's still kind of more esoteric, just kind of like I said, like kind of heady, like thoughts set to movement. And what kind of put this into context for me is there's a special feature on here where this started out as a shoot for a heavy metal music video that the director was doing, and in the course of kind of like creating kind of some of the movements and like the aesthetic for this, he realized that there was like something to this that could probably be turned into a movie, and like kind of developed it a little bit further. So what this is basically a series of different kind of dancers, all like kind of like have like kind of bodysuits on, covered in different like not vibrant paint, more like grays and greens and stuff. And they're just like kind of like moving, and they're sometimes like edited in like certain ways where their bodies are like, this is like not an exaggeration, they're just kind of like looking like this for a little bit. It's kind of like really interesting movements. But what the choreographer and the director and everyone are trying to do, they're trying to kind of explore elements of like grief and isolation and anxiety through movement, because whenever like kind of this kind of like internal trauma, it's not just all like mental. Sometimes like it manifests within the body, and you just like kind of have like a visceral reaction. And this is just kind of trying to channel some of that into kind of more of a productive, artistic, admittedly kind of like high-minded, but if you're into that and you're like into kind of experimental dance, I think you'll really vibe with this. I do think it does kind of get away from itself a little bit at times, or you kind of just, I don't know, start to zone out. But that might be part of the experience of just kind of like taking all this in. It's just kind of like a work of art. It's just kind of like you're kind of like coming in and out of it and just experience different, you're getting different things depending on your interpretation from this movement, which was helped out a lot for me because there is an audio commentary track. Thank God for this movie, because whenever you're dealing with something with like that's so experimental, it helps a little bit to have like a guide of just like, where was your head at with this? What were you kind of telling the dancer that made them inform this? What were you trying to kind of get at? Which I don't need it spoon fed to me. It's just kind of helpful just to help me appreciate it a little bit more. And just like maybe on subsequent watches, I can be like, okay, this is what they were thinking. And I'm like, okay, I actually think this, even though they were going for this, and just I can have different interpretations. It's a very engaging movie. It's not for everyone though. Like I said, you have to be into experimental dance or you will just like find this to be a slog. Like this is purely movement throughout, and like moody music as well. So I like the score as well. It's like the choreographer, the director, the editor, and the composer are all on this commentary track, and they all have different insights that they can add, which is great. Other than that, there's like a photo gallery and like a trailer. So if it sounds fun to you, The Severing is good. If it sounds like, oh, that is too artsy fartsy for me, I understand. It's not for everyone, but it's a pretty cool movie if you're into it. So The Severing from Kino Lorber.
When you said it was like mostly like dance, I was thinking of that movie Climax. Did you ever see that?
Yes. Yeah. They actually mentioned Climax on the back. So that's like one of the first.
Is it as crazy as Climax? Because I don't think anything is really.
The thing is, like, there's not really a narrative. Like, it's like there really isn't. It's just like music and just movement and just like concepts. Like, it's if you're looking for a narrative, you're going to be really out to sea. It's just purely people like dancers just like contorting their bodies and just like it's not even like rhythmic dancing a lot. It's just kind of like movement, and it's very, very experimental. I have to underline that. It's very experimental. It's not narrative driven at all.
That might be a try before I buy kind of thing, but yeah, I mean there definitely is a market for that, so that's cool if that kind of fits all of your needs.
Yeah.
So we are getting into the silent corner now. And this was one that I was really excited about because I believe, yeah, he did, this director, Joe May, did The Indian Tomb, which was another film that was very long, but really pretty interesting. And this is Asphalt. Now, we do have a really great historical commentary track, and this has a 5.1 and a lossless 2.0 audio track as well. So, yeah, this is one of those movies that I was like, wow, you could definitely not make this maybe like 5 or even 10 years after this because it's very racy. There is a lot of skin. There's like there's actually, you don't really see anything, but there's like a bathing scene where, there's a lot going on. So, I know, cover your eyes. I know your mom watches, so you don't watch, and you don't look at any of that stuff. But no, this was a really interesting film, and I'm very fascinated with like old German cinema, especially before a certain dictator came to power. And what I think a lot of people, critics at the time and contemporary critics talk about with this movie is how visually beautiful it is. Like there's these tracking shots, panning shots. Like you can definitely see how like Hollywood definitely cribbed a lot of the best sort of elements from these early German films. And yeah, it's a very interesting sort of like heist, more of a romance. There's like a femme fatale who looks like Betty Boop. Um, I thought it was so cool the way she would like put diamonds in her umbrella, just neat little things like that. And then as the film progresses, it becomes this kind of more serious um, drama, although it always is a little bit body. It's a little bit like funny and light. Again, going back to my previous title, it's not slapstick, but there is that sort of like physical comedy kind of things going on, especially with silent films. You have a very stylized kind of mode of acting, and I don't know. It's interesting because the characters are, I think, given more complexity with their relationship and the conflict with this femme fatale thief and this young officer. And yeah, it's a good one. I think it's interesting. I think the ending um is really something. I don't want to spoil it, but it definitely, I think, hit home what it was trying to say with this like almost forbidden romance. And yeah, I liked it. The cinematographer, per the back, also did the Blue Angel, which is a Marlene Dietrich vehicle, which was also great, and Kino also put out. So yeah, this is great. Had a good time. Just, I mean, the story's okay, but visually, it is really amazing.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I definitely going to have to add that to my silent film collection because the Indian Tomb, while though very long, was quite an experience. So that's pretty cool. My final title is okay. So this is from Mill Creek, and recently they've really been wilding. I don't know what they've been doing, but they have been putting some series out on Blu-ray that I'm just like, what are you, this is the most random release I can think of. But I was kind of interested to revisit this. This is from 2010. This is the one season, The Event. So the complete series ran from 2010 to 2011 on NBC. I watched it back in the day. I had completely forgotten about it, but now it is back on Blu-ray. And it's like I said, it's the most random choice for a Blu-ray, just because like this is basically in the time where Lost had just ended and everyone was so like wanting their own like next Lost, and they were like going for like their big like mystery box sci-fi shows. So this is right in that lane, and I won't spoil too much, but I will just spoil just the like something that's revealed in the second episode. This deals with aliens and so like aliens among us type scenario. So sorry, spoilers for this series, but there you learn that pretty quickly, and there's a lot of like I said, elements of Lost where there's like flashbacks to different perspectives and like on different things, but the creatives, and they say this in the special features, they realized about like 8 or 9 episodes in that their flashbacks were confusing people too much, so they just completely eliminated them the second half of the series, but it ended up getting canceled regardless. But they were just like, oh, this is too confusing and the audience hates this, so we're just gonna stop. But so yeah, it wasn't long for this world. It's a pretty entertaining show. I like the cast pretty well. So there's like Jason Ritter and Blair Underwood. The Zelko Ivnik, who is in every single sci-fi show like series that happened in the last 20 years. He just plays like a Weasley bad guy all the time. There's a special several episode appearance from Tony Todd, which is pretty cool. I know like we're big fans of Tony Todd on this channel. But would I recommend this to like it's a fun enough mystery box show. I do have to caution, which is another reason why I think it's so weird that they're releasing this. This ends on the biggest cliffhanger that just never got resolved. So you'll just once again, like, if you're like, okay, I'm gonna check out the show, and you get to the finale, and you're just like, oh, I'm ready for more. You're like, no, this show was canceled 10 years ago, like 12 years ago, and it never got resolved. So be aware that you will be left on a major cliffhanger, but it is still fun for what it is. Just like a slowly building 22 episode sci-fi show that you're like getting little bits of like payoff every couple episodes, but building into a bigger mystery. It's fun. I wasn't heartbroken that it was canceled back in the day, but it was fun to revisit it, especially just on Blu-ray. But so yeah, this Blu-ray, it's Mill Creek. They've done worse, they've done better, but they've done worse specific. So like, it's a pretty solid transfer. Like on a lot of these, they only cram like 4 episodes plus like some special features, which actually is pretty good for them. There's a few discs with 5 episodes, which isn't bad, but you can see evidence of some like digital noise and compression stuff here and there. But overall, it's a pretty solid transfer. They did a really nice job with this for them. If this was another label, I'd probably be like, this is a little disappointing. But for Mill Creek, good job, guys. You did it. But they actually put a lot of special features on here. There's 6 audio commentary tracks on like 6 different episodes. There's 56 minutes of deleted scenes across all these discs. And there's like several featurettes on the visual effects of the show. So I think they just ported over all the vintage special features that came out with the DVD back whenever it was first came out about 12 years ago. But they just upgraded it to Blu-ray. Looks pretty nice. But I gotta say, if you're going to start like reviving all these canceled NBC shows, I have a laundry list of things that I would like to get like just before that. Like, give me okay, this is owned by Disney/Fox, so it'll never come out. But there's a show called Journeyman, which was amazing. Loved it so much. Give me that. Give me the 2 seasons of Life that came out with Damian Lewis. Amazing. Give me the 1 season Awake with Jason Isaac. I'll take it. Like, there's so many. Like, if you're gonna go batshit crazy with it, just give it to me. I was also disappointed. I'm not gonna keep rambling, but they recently released the Matthew Perry sitcom Go On DVD, and I was like, give that the Blu-ray. I would love to have that. I love that show, but I digress. The Event, pretty solid release. Keep giving me these canceled NBC shows. I'll take them. I'm a TV slut. I'll take it, but it's a pretty solid release.
Nice. I've never seen it. I feel like I vaguely remember when that was sort of new. But my final title is also a complete series, but I feel like probably holds up a little better, and that is the Venture Brothers.
Go Team Venture!
Complete
Nice
series. And she's a beefy one here. And now I have to be really, really careful because one of my things already broke, but
oh no.
So we got a booklet inside here, and yeah, so this is like how it's sort of like the gatefold. See, my thingy already broke, so I gotta be really careful how so I'm not gonna flip through this, but y'all know kind of what that style is like. It's not our favorite, but you know, that's what we got to work with, and I love this series, so that's what we're doing. So are you a fan of the show?
Yes, I was actually I was just gonna say I was kind of disappointed they didn't do a complete series Blu-ray, because they've released 4 of the seasons on Blu-ray, 3 through 6, and then they kind of stopped. So I have kind of like an irregular collection, but I do like the series, so I'm glad I have these Blu-rays, but I'm glad they at least finished this in some form.
Yeah, and for those new to this show, first of all, watch it. I don't know what you're doing with your life, but drop everything and watch it. Yeah, it's a really funny adventure show, which kind of harkens back to some of those like Johnny Quest, some of those like golden age of Hanna-Barbera shows on the surface. But then I think what's surprising about this show is it really starts developing this wonderful, complex world building, and like characters that you think are like ancillary characters really get built up into some really interesting story arcs. Like, was it Henchman 23, who has like a really cool kind of arc throughout the series. David Bowie is a character in this universe. There is this entire, was it the Guild of Calamitous Intent, that is this really interesting, a little bit complex, you know, um, rogues gallery, but it's all like this hilarious kind of bureaucratic way of being evil, I guess. And again, I think the series does start to get a little bit maybe overly complex, but uh, yeah, it's a wild ride. It's really fun. I love the characters. I love that it kind of skirts the line of being like kind of like graphic. It kind of feels sort of like heavy metal, like that and the animated movie. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I especially love like the adventuring stuff that like Rusty did as a kid, and how that kind of comes into play as an adult. Yeah, again, it's just there's just such a rich mythology that this show builds for itself, and I think it's like one of the like maybe earliest sort of Adult Swim shows that really kind of had this sort of rich world building that was very complex. And like the first couple of seasons, you kind of don't get the bigger picture. It's only when you start to get into season 2 and 3, and then of course like even more so where you really get into the guild and the rules and all this kind of like craziness. But it's a wild ride. It's a lot of fun. I am so happy. It's just been a blast kind of going through these again and being like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Or like, again, weird little like treats like David Bowie and all other stuff. So check it out. It's a really fun release. I believe this ports over everything from the previous individual releases. Um, as far as I can tell, there's nothing new to this set other than it just being packaged together. Maybe if this sells really well, they might maybe do a Blu-ray someday. And of course, we'll keep y'all, updated on that. But yeah, we're going off on a high note. This is a really great release. Warner Brothers did a nice job. Yes, we would like a Blu-ray, but if there's a demand for it, maybe we'll get it. So that is our show. As always, we really appreciate likes, comments, sharing, all that great stuff. It's really cool to see we're retaining some viewership. So if you keep coming back, thank you. Subscribe. We do this every week. We have a lot of other great content that comes out daily. So as always, thank you for hanging out with us.
This is Julian, the Frenchman who makes French pronunciation videos here on YouTube, and we are looking at how to pronounce the name of this fictional gentleman thief.